Hello world. In these days of social distancing and self-isolating and whatnot, I thought I'd pop along and cheer you up, as it were. And I'm going to do something which I haven't seen done on YouTube, which is a ranking of people's favourite ABBA albums. I'm going to do mine from favourite down to least favourite. It's totally a personal choice, but what I'll endeavour to do along the way, especially for those people, maybe the younger ones who know ABBA from the Mamma Mia films and whatnot, they probably don't know that some of these albums even exist. So I'm going to kind of put them on the map for them and also tell you the standout non-singles that were on these albums, as well as some of the bloopers that they made, because I don't think there's a single ABBA album that hasn't got a song that I think is totally crap on it. So I'll give those as well. And also I will try and remember the B-sides that didn't appear on albums, and there were one or two that didn't appear anywhere. Nowadays you will find them on CD compilations, but I still think that the best way to listen to ABBA is on the original vinyl LPs. Also, I am sticking to the albums that they released within their career and not any of the compilations afterwards. So that means that Gold is out, for example. And also, I'm talking about the UK market because I don't know very much about the non-UK market, but there were slight track variations, particularly with the early albums, where it was slightly different. So yeah, it's the UK market. Okay, so starting off then. Okay, my favourite album by ABBA is this album. It's Super Trouper. This is an original copy. It has the competition that you could win there. I wonder actually, I think I've actually got one of these where you actually get the little leaflet in telling you how to enter the competition. Yes, there it is. That's the competition that you could enter. Okay, this album cover feels rather sticky. I don't know why, but yeah. This has The Winner Takes It All and Super Trouper. These are the two standout tracks on this album. Okay. In terms of non-singles, we've got Happy New Year and Our Last Summer, which are probably two of my favourites. We've also got Lay All Your Love on Me, which was a minor hit single in the UK. In terms of its bummer tracks, it's got one bummer track on it, which is called On and On and On, which also featured on the Lay All Your Love on Me. I think it was released as a 12-inch single. I've got it somewhere. I think it's even got another verse in it as well. It really doesn't need it. This is ABBA without their trousers on, people. You just don't want to hear it. But yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, the Winner Takes It All. The B-side of The Winner Takes It All was a song called Elaine, which you'll find on a CD compilation. You'll find that, as in like the bonus tracks on later CD releases of Super Trouper. Okay, so you will find it there. There was also another song which didn't appear anywhere, called Put On Your White Sombrero, and I don't think that was ever released during ABBA's time, but again it features on the bonus tracks on some of the CD Super Troopers that are around. So that's my favourite. It's my favourite purely because of nostalgia. I had a wonderful Christmas in 1980 when this album was released, and this album, via its pre-recorded cassettes, turned up with a brand new cassette recorder for me. I'd never had one before and I was just super excited, and yeah, it just brings back wonderful memories of that time for me. So yeah, that's why it's my favourite. Yeah. Okay, this one might be slightly controversial, but this is my second favourite, ABBA. Okay, it was released in 1975. It contains as its sort of two standout singles, Mamma Mia and SOS. It had a couple of Duff singles on there, I Do and So Long. However, I like both of those songs actually, particularly So Long. I think So Long is absolutely brilliant. So yeah, those two singles were sort of follow-ups to Waterloo. after the Eurovision Song Contest, and they didn't go down too well in England at the time, but I like them both. I didn't hear this album, by the way, until about 1978. So, yeah, and I was a kid, and yeah, I like them anyway. It also has, for me, the track Tropical Loveland and Hey Hey Helen and Man in the Middle, which I think are brilliant songs. Even though, yeah, again, Man in the Middle, slightly clumsy, it's social commentary kind of thing about the rich and stuff like that. ABBA were getting an awful lot of flack at the time in Sweden for being populist and not being sort of left-wing enough at the time. And so I think the song Man in the Middle was supposedly some sort of answer to that, in terms of the fact that, yeah, they were sort of ridiculing some sort of 50-year-old bloke who had a 17-year-old partner and basically drank champagne in his limousine when the rest of us had a beer and all this kind of thing. So yeah, it was, you know, pseudo social commentary, but it's really good. It's got some brilliant saxophone on it, which I like. In terms of Duff tracks, its only Duff track for me is really Bang a Boomerang. Okay, another notable track on here is Rock Me, which featured in on both of ABBA's tours and was like a favourite sort of standout track for Bjorn. So yeah, this is 90% solid in terms of just really good tracks on here. Okay, so yeah, I would, you know, strongly recommend that as being sort of in one's top 3 of favourites. Next album comes as no surprise, ABBA Arrival. This is typically iconic. This helicopter album was, you know, it's just one of the instantly recognisable covers from the 70s, really. And I have mixed feelings about this album. It was the first ABBA album I ever heard. It belonged to my uncle and I absolutely adored it. We got it for him for his birthday and I was the one who played it to death. Absolutely adored it. However, in my later years, as it were, I kind of got to despise some tracks on here. Dum Dum Diddle being the one that I absolutely really despised. And although Arrival, the song Arrival, has a nice tune to it, its sound quality is absolutely atrocious. It hurts my ears to listen to it now. So those perhaps are 2 low moments for me, but the rest of it's fantastic. You know, it's just ABBA at their sort of teeny pop best. It's got Dancing Queen on it, Knowing Me, Knowing You, Money, Money, Money. You know, just absolutely solid tracks on here. If you want a couple of album tracks that are standout that weren't singles, When I Kissed the Teacher, That's Me, brilliant tracks, and Tiger's not too bad either. Yeah. This album was released in some Latin American countries, I believe, with Fernando as a bonus track on it at the end of side 2 after Arrival, and that would have been at the time, because I can remember having a cassette copy of Arrival from a dubious source, i.e. Clacton Market, and yeah, although, you know, it's slightly dubious where they got it from, it was still on Polydor. It was still, you know, it looked relatively bona fide, just slightly poorer quality, but it had Fernando on it, so I have a feeling that it was released at the time with Fernando on it, but we'll come back to Fernando a bit later on. Now, B-sides on here. Knowing Me, Knowing You had an early version of Why Did It Have to Be Me as the B-side. That was called Happy Hawaii. And again, you will find that on later copies of Arrival on CD. And also, you will find Fernando. I think the, what's the guy's name? The one that we hated. I can't remember anyway, but there is a version of this with Fernando as a bonus track, as a CD, and also Money 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 had a B-side called Crazy World, which was released in written in 1975. It is absolutely awful. It is corny beyond belief and sung not very well by Bjorn. So if you want to hear that, I think that is on the ABBA album's bonus tracks. So you'll find that there. My next favourite album. Oops, hold on. My next favourite album is ABBA Greatest Hits Volume 2. This album, if you need a decent compilation of ABBA that encompasses from 1975 up to 1979, then this is it. It's an absolute stomper of a compilation. Let me read you the track listing. Gimme Gimme Gimme, which is the only album that you will find this on at the time, that, you know, during ABBA's time, as it were. Knowing Me, Knowing You, Take a Chance on Me, Money Money Money, Rock Me, Eagle, Angel Eyes, Dancing Queen, Does Your Mother Know, Chiquitita, Summer Night City. Again, that's the only album that you'll find this on, because Summer Night City was a single. I Wonder, which is from the album, which I'll get to in a second. The Name of the Game, Thank You for the Music. So, you know, an absolute stunner of a compilation album, which, because it was mastered from the originals rather than from CD or digital sort of masters, sounds absolutely fantastic. Okay, the only slight criticism I would have is that it's been mastered to make Summer Night City sound loud, because it's well documented that Bjorn and Benny had quite a lot of trouble mixing Summer Night City, and so yeah, it's particularly side 2 seems to have, you know, a slight bias towards making Summer Night City sound loud. So that's it really, you know. So the other tracks are slightly quieter, as it were. Next, ABBA the album. Okay, this is another one from ABBA, from, you know, the absolute peak of ABBA's career. What have we got on here that's a standout single? Take a Chance on Me and The Name of the Game. It also contains Thank You for the Music, which was never a single, at least not in ABBA's time, and at least not in the UK, but it's there. Okay, this was released slightly after the hugely successful ABBA tour of Australia, and to coincide with ABBA the movie as well. So all the sort of cover art here is to do with Australia, and is also to do with the movie as well. And again, this is perfectly solid. I don't think, in terms of songs on here, there is one single duff track. It includes a favourite of mine, which you'll find me talking about in another video on here. I did a Magical Musical Moments of Hole in Your Soul, and Hole in Your Soul was fantastic, and it was part of the finale of the ABBA tour in 1979 as well. Just amazing. So, brilliant. Voulez-Vous is my next choice. Again, absolutely solid album. It contains a fantastic song called As Good As New, which is an album track, and If It Wasn't for the Nights, which is an album track. Also contains Does Your Mother Know, and obviously Voulez-Vous as well. And the only reason why this comes relatively low down in my pile of things, in my pile of albums, as it were, is because of I Have a Dream and Chiquitita, which I find slightly schmaltzy. Although Chiquitita did serve a useful purpose in that it was released, it was first performed in a concert organised by UNICEF, and there are other bands like the Bee Gees and other sort of current 70s acts at the time. and all the proceeds of Chiquitita went to UNICEF, which is basically, you know, and 1979 was the year of the child. And this song, Chiquitita, still continues to raise money for UNICEF even to this day, and it's raised millions basically for them. So yeah, good on them for doing that. But I don't like the song particularly, and I don't like I Have a Dream. So yeah, there we go. That's Voulez-Vous for you. Oh, have I missed out any bonus tracks? I have, actually. Let's go back a bit. So, right. To volume 2 to start with. Okay, Summer Night City. The B-side of Summer Night City was called Medley, and it was Pick a Bale of Cotton, Midnight Special, and On Top of Old Smoky as a medley together. That was again recorded in 1975, and again it's on one of the compilations of the ABBA album, one of the CD compilations of the ABBA album. Okay, so that's from there. Okay, now on the album we have got The Name of the Game. Now the B-side of that was a live version of I Wonder Departure, which I like. I think it's great, and I'd be interested to know who else thinks it's great. I know that Bjorn and Benny absolutely hated it, and that little piano solo that Benny plays on it was not ever there when they performed it live. It was a sax solo or something, which because I've heard a bootleg of it somewhere. I think Rudolph sent me a bootleg once upon a time. Oh, sorry, Rudolph. Yeah, but yeah, I have heard it, and yeah, it's not amazing, but the version that they released on the B-side of The Name of the Game is actually good, and I actually really like it. But ABBA never did. But again, you will find it on CD compilations of ABBA the album. I'm saying CD compilations because they've had at least they've had at least 3 releases on CD since the ABBA years expired, as it were, and they're not on all of them. They varied the bonus tracks slightly. Okay, on Voulez-Vous, which is where we were before I kind of got thrown, as it were. Yeah, I don't think there are any bonus tracks. You'll find Summer Night City on here. Oh, and Chiquitita, the B-side of Chiquitita was a song called Love Light, which I think is on more ABBA Gold, actually, but it's also, you'll find it on CD compilations of Voulez-Vous. And Love Light kind of comes in 2 flavours. There's one which was taken from 40 master tapes or something, where one channel disappears. I've done an anomalies video on it, so it's definitely on more ABBA Gold, so check that one out. Okay, I can't remember every single anomaly that I ever did, especially as I did them now 10 years ago or something. So yeah, you know, you just check it out. Okay, my next ABBA album that I absolutely love is, and I do love all these albums, even though now we're kind of getting to the dregs of them. Okay, I do absolutely love them. Okay, is Waterloo. Okay, this is the UK version of Waterloo. It's actually an original with the yellow label, and yeah, it was a bit of a cobbled together album from you know, just to tie in with the fact that they'd won the Eurovision Song Contest. So here they are in their Eurovision Song Contest outfits, and that's the conductor Sven-Olof Voldorf, dressed as Napoleon behind them. And yeah, I think, you know, yeah, some of these songs, you know, in the scheme of things, if you were to sort of, you know, take away their lyrics from the music or whatever and dissect them completely and stuff, you'd find that some of these songs are absolute crap. But in fact, this is an absolutely rollicking album. You know, I don't think, you know, if you take it in context and you just bear in mind that ABBA's English was not particularly good, at the time, and that some of these songs came from various different sources, and some were recorded before and some were recorded after and whatnot, then it's an absolutely fantastic album, and it holds together very well. What have we got on here that's an absolute standout track? Obviously Waterloo. We've got Dance While the Music Still Goes On. We've got Honey Honey. We've got Ring Ring. Okay, now Ring Ring I don't think was originally on the Swedish album, okay, but you got a Swedish version of Waterloo on the Swedish version. But yeah, you know, and then in terms of, you know, sort of also ran songs, we've got Sitting in the Palm Tree, which is a Bjorn one, which I actually quite like. I think it's just really cute. For the same reason that I love Tropical Loveland on the ABBA album. It's just chilled and cute. We've got Gonna Sing You My Love Song, which is Frida's kind of standout version. It's or sort of standout solo track. It's very good. We've got Hasta Mañana, which was nearly a contender instead of Waterloo to be performed at Eurovision. I don't think it would have won, but you know, so you know, it's an absolutely sort of rollicking first album from a group that everybody dismissed as being Eurovision one-hit wonders, and you know, I like it. Okay, I really like it. Okay, the next album I call my ABBA's Bloody Cheek album. Okay, this is ABBA Greatest Hits. Okay, this is the UK version. The Swedish version had sort of some caricature-y pictures of ABBA on it. It's rather grotesque, I think, actually. But yeah, it wasn't entirely out of keeping for the time. If you think of albums like Rod Stewart's Atlantic Crossing and Goodbye Yellow Brick Road from Elton, then you've got similar sort of caricature-y style covers on those as well, just to name but two. So yeah, I mean, it was a trendy thing to do at the time, and I think that's what you've got to sort of take away from that. This cover is a bit sad, really. You know, you've got, even in 1976 when this was released, you've got Bjorn and Agneta ignoring one another and looking rather miserable, while Frida and Benny are mid-snog. So yeah, but this album, basically, I think, given that it was released in 1976, even before Arrival, okay, did have 3 of ABBA's greatest hits on it from the time. 4 of them, I beg your pardon. Fernando, Mamma Mia, SOS and Waterloo. Okay, this is the only album where you will find Fernando. Okay, but the rest of them, the rest of the tracks were from sort of, you know, 72, 73 even. You know, for most people in the UK, they'd never heard of any of these tracks before this album. So quite, you know, how they figured out as greatest hits, I don't know. But I do think that, you know, given that ABBA by that time had become, you know, a very popular group in the UK because of those 4 standout tracks there, and because of the sort of absolute hysteria that was going on in Australia at the time, I think they felt that they could actually release some of these sort of earlier songs, as it were, and make some money out of them, which is all I'll say about that, really. But you know, it's a good greatest hits album, and again, I have fond memories of this from my childhood as well, so you know, I do like it. Okay, we're coming down to 2 more albums here, folks. The next one, as in my second to worst, no, we've got 3 albums, beg your pardon. My second to worst is Ring Ring. Okay, this was not even really released as ABBA. It's got ABBA on here because this was the first time it was released. You know, strictly speaking, it shouldn't even be here at all. It was it was given a sort of worldwide release in about 1991 or 92, something like that. Okay, the original had Agneta and Bjorn, Benny and Frida at the top here. Instead, because they weren't even known as ABBA at that time. And you know, if I said that Waterloo was a cobbled together album of kind of, you know, a track from here and a track from there and whatever. This one is more so, okay? It does have Another Town, Another Train, People Need Love, Ring Ring, obviously, Nina Pretty Ballerina, Here's Your Brother on here. However, all of those songs you can find on ABBA Greatest Hits, and some of the other songs are slightly okay. We've got the first version of Disillusion on here, which I suppose is quite a standout track, although actually it was written by Agneta and Bjorn rather than Benny and Bjorn. It's the only song where Agneta has had any kind of songwriting credit for ABBA. And in 1975, Agneta got together with a lyricist to do a solo album because she was contracted with CBS Kupol in Sweden. She had to fulfill that contract. If you look at the original album covers for the earlier ABBA albums, you'll see that it says Agneta appears courtesy of CBS Kupol, and that's because she was really signed up for them, and really and truthfully that Polar Music were kind of hiring her to perform on the ABBA albums, and so she had to release this solo album. Disillusion was kind of rehashed and rewritten as a Swedish version, which actually sounds much better, I think, because I don't even think that English people would actually use the word disillusion, at least not in the sense that that they actually mean. You know, we would say delusioned or delusional or something like that, you know, so the English on it is particularly bad, whereas the Swedish lyric actually translates very well, yeah? So, has better lyrics in Swedish, people. ABBA the Singles is my second to least favourite. It does contain the only album occurrences of The Day Before You Came and Under Attack. However, there are two B-sides, Cassandra and You Owe Me One, which didn't appear on here, and they were, you know, the B-sides of The Day Before You Came and Under Attack, respectfully, and we didn't get those on here. Also on here, I think this was one of the first occurrences where, at least in the UK, where the stereo positions were muddled up as well. So what was originally on the left, or coming out of the left-hand side of the soundstage, suddenly emerged on the right-hand side, and vice versa, which kind of made it a bit weird. Also, without so much as a by your leave, they edited the name of the game, edited the second verse out of the name of the game. And I just think, you know, just for me, in terms of emotionally and whatever, you know, this came out in 1982. And, you know, even me at age sort of 13 going on 14, knew that ABBA, you know, their time was up, and that this was all a bit of a charade, really, that they were going through. And so, you know, for me, it's just a wee bit sad, actually, to have to listen to this, really. You know, if you want a really good, you know, the two really good ABBA compilations that were released were obviously Greatest Hits Volume 1 and Volume 2. So, yeah, don't particularly like that one. And finally, you know, again, you know, this was the Visitors from the year before the Singles, and the songs on the Visitors were just downright miserable. Okay, they really were just downright miserable and sad and whatever. Yeah, I like them, you know, and there's much good to listen to on here. Soldiers is a fantastic song, for example. Two for the Price of One I thought was funny but slightly cheesy. Like an Angel Passing Through My Room, it's lovely. However, on the whole, it's just a bit miserable. It does contain One of Us. Okay, now One of Us had a B-side which was called Should I Laugh or Cry. You'll find that again on Visitors visitors bonus track CDs, whatever. And also you'll find Cassandra and You Owe Me One, I think, also turn up on some of the visitors bonus tracks on some of the CDs. Okay, so that, folks, is my, I'm not going to call it definitive, because I think it just depends on your mood at the time and whatever, but that is kind of, if I had to order those albums, that's how I'd order them. Okay, Super Trouper being my favourite and the Visitors being my least favourite. Okay, all right, I will come back to you another time. Thank you very much for listening. Hello, bye-bye. It's just me again, just doing a little addenda here. I forgot to say a couple of things, and so first of all, I thought it might just be useful for people to know the actual order that these albums were released in, because obviously my ranked albums are higgledy-piggledy in release order. Okay, so starting off, Ring Ring, Waterloo, ABBA, Greatest Hits Volume 1, oops, Arrival, get rid of those, the album, Voulez-Vous, Greatest Hits Volume 2, which was actually released to coincide with ABBA's tour of '79, Super Trouper, The Visitors, and the singles, the first 10 years, and the only 10 years, has to be said. Get rid of those. In connection with Voulez-Vous, there was a 12-inch version of Voulez-Vous itself for the American market. It was never ever released as such to the market, but there were various sort of versions given out to club DJs, particularly in America. It's on the Atlantic label, which was ABBA's label in the 70s for America. You will find that on the DeLuxe Voulez-Vous album, and you'll also find it on my channel, the vinyl version, as it were, because I put it out there. And also, there's a new book that's out by Ian Cole. Ian Cole is an Australian ABBA aficionado and authoritative person, and he's written a book called ABBA Song by Song, which came out about a week, 2 weeks ago maybe, and is actually now sold out completely, except that you can download it for the Kindle, and so if you want to read it, then it's on the Kindle. All right, bye bye.